Welcome to the KINGSBEAT podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We are brought to you by PrizePicks, and of course, we're a Blue Wire podcast. Joining me today, Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
A little lonely in our little 2-box here. I don't see
I
our friend
know.
Brendan. This is getting a little odd, but no, just giving him grief. Brendan is good. He's just not here today, so we're
Yeah.
here. We're gonna power through, and feels like it's been a while since we've done one of these. But you know what the consistent thing is? It's still freaking raining outside. So there's my gripe. I won't go on about the weather, but it has affected my mood. I took a nap today. And
Oh,
I typically get, if I take a nap during the week, it's usually like I don't know, maybe an hour, sometimes 45 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half. I took a sizable nap to where I think I would just call it sleep. And uh yes, you can sleep a little bit too long and I think I did because I'm pretty freaking groggy. But other than that, I'm pretty good, buddy. How are you?
good. I wish I could take a nap. I
Yeah, I
could go
bet.
for a nap right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
dear heaven.
we're late night people, both you and I.
Yeah.
And having a radio show, even though it's only at 10, it still takes a lot out of you. It's because, we have games, and then I won't get home from a game till like 12:30 or 1. Sometimes I get home at 11:30, but then I can't go to sleep, and then I gotta be up at 7. But my clock and my body is not working properly, so I keep waking up at 5 o'clock and then 6 o'clock and then 6:30, and, I can't sleep until 7. It's been a little bit of adjustment. I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
All these changes are different. Let's get to the business side. Number one, if you're watching on YouTube and you don't mind, you can give us a thumbs up. Also, we would love it if you subscribe to the channel. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber, so you get an email with all of this stuff sent to you right to your inbox. You know when anything comes out, and also you get access to everything else we do here at the Kings Beat. No Brendan today. He's got something going on and couldn't make it to the show. He'll be back next week, or he'll be back if we have another show later in the week. But we're kind of ramping up here. We're at February 1st.
Hmm.
Later on this evening, we would have loved to have had this content to share with you, but they're going to announce all-star reserves. And so whether the Kings get one reserve or they get two reserves or they get zero reserves, we'll know that in just a little while. But it does seem like, the Kings should at least have some representation, I would think. Whether that totally happens, I'm not 100%. But where are you at? Do you think that they deserve one or two? And if you do think that they deserve one, is there one that you would choose over the other? Where are you at with this?
Yeah, I've debated it for probably the past 2 weeks or so. I think they definitely deserve one, and if they get two, great. I mean, that's certainly I'm not going to scream from a mountaintop and say that that's unfair. But if they get two, it feels like some team might not get the proper representation in the West. And I don't know. Every time I come up with a list, I've had it with both Fox and Sabonis in, but I think I land on just one of them making it. And part of that isn't necessarily totally my doing. It's also just kind of anticipating what the coaches will do. And I think all you have to do is kind of learn from your history. So like look at last year, Devin Booker it, it doesn't get in, you know.
Hmm.
Um Fox is an injury replacement. Um I mean, to that point, Booker having a much better season this year statistically, and I think he might be rewarded for it. A lot of people thought he was snubbed. Fox comes in as an injury replacement, and then let's be honest, like the coaches in the West, particularly rewarded defense. Jaren Jackson Jr. was an all-star, and I think that caught a lot of people
Oof.
by surprise. So, by virtue of looking what Minnesota's doing, does Rudy Gobert, who doesn't really have numbers of an all-star, but defensively, what he's doing could be defensive player of the year again. Look what he's doing for Minnesota as a number one team in the West. He could get rewarded for that. And there's some people that think it might be Karl Anthony Towns that gets rewarded for it because obviously he has numbers that are more typical with what you'd see from an all-star player.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, I mean, Anthony Edwards, and Anthony Davis too as well. But Anthony Edwards is going to, I think, definitely be an all-star. He will be the representative from Minnesota. It's, do you give them two? Do you give Denver two? Do you give? I mean, I just mentioned Anthony Davis a second ago. LeBron is in as a starter. Do the Lakers deserve two all-stars? Well, no, but Anthony Davis is
absolutely
star
not.
player, right? Anthony Davis is a star player, and if you ask most people, I mean, he's putting up numbers that are just incredible. So, um, so is Domantas Sabonis, and I think there's going to be a little bit of a recency bias. You know, Domantas Sabonis, when you look at it from a Kings perspective, has just been unbelievable since what I would maintain is that 2-game losing streak in Houston. Ever since that moment to where they turn the page and they rattle off, 6 straight wins, I think Domas has just been unbelievable with the 13 triple doubles, the incredible amount of double doubles, leading the league in rebounds. Obviously, he's averaging at 20 points a game, and then look at, I mean, he's top 10 in assists. So
He's number
I love,
yeah, I think he's number 6 in assists at
yeah,
8 a game, leading the league
in,
in rebounding. Yeah,
incredible numbers. And then you look at Fox, when again scoring is up this year, and Fox, his 3-point shooting is better, his defense is better, his points are up. He had an outstanding start to the season, and it's tapered off a bit. So if the coaches waited to the last minute to get their votes in, or maybe they voted early as opposed to later, um, maybe some minds have changed. So I can I think if I was to predict it, James, I still think they're going to get one representative. I think the representative would be Domantas Sabonis, and we'll see. If there's an injury replacement, I think Fox is going to be in that conversation for sure. Um, but I can't picture a world that Domas doesn't get in over Fox if you only have one.
yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me, and to be honest, I think Sabonis deserves the nod. If you're only giving one. I think in a perfect world, you'd give them both an All
Right.
Star appearance. And for me, I think the guy that I'm going to come back to, like, I think Devin Booker deserves to be in the game. And like, we can look at De'Aaron Fox and we can look at Steph Curry. And you could say, hey, Fox's stats are equal to or better than Curry, and he's on a team that's actually successful, where Curry's on a team that's not good at all right now. But Steph Curry's getting in the game. And I think if you're going to give one of those away, which honestly, I have no problems with Steph Curry making it, right? But if I'm going to give one of those away, then I don't think I can give two away. And the second one, I don't think you can give Anthony Davis an all star nod. And I don't care like how big you think his stats are. His stats, he averages more points per game, but he's not even in the same ballpark as far as rebounds and assists as Sabonis is. And so I have a really, really tough time with Davis getting in, mainly because this team is not good. And the Kings are a better team. So I don't know. I don't you mentioned teams. I don't think Rudy Gobert deserves to be in the All-Star game. He's just, sure, great defensively, but you can't give away all-star bids to a guy who plays one side of the court. And I mean, I just don't think you can. And, we've seen it time and time again where, guys like this somehow squeak in. I'm a little leery there. I don't think Denver has a solid number two. OKC doesn't have a solid number two that are equal to an all-star level player. It's not to take away from like Jamal Murray, but yeah, averaging 21 points a game doesn't make you an all-star. And I think some of these other players, some of these other teams, I don't know what they do with a team like the Clippers. Like, I have no idea. Like, do you give Kawhi Leonard and Paul George a nod? Do you give one of them a nod? I don't think like people are saying, oh, James Harden, like James Harden's averaging 17 points a game. I just
Right.
don't see any way in which he's there. Fox is sixth in the Western Conference in scoring at over 27 a game, and he's right there with Curry. Like literally, like one of them's at 27.3 and one's at 27.2, something like that. So I think it's going to be interesting. And again, if I'm choosing one, the one guy I'm choosing is Sabonis, and it's because of the double doubles. It's because of the consistencies, because of the triple doubles. It's because of the 8 assists a game. Everything that he's doing, I think he's gotten better defensively. I just think overall, like he does everything you could possibly ask for. He doesn't miss games. He hasn't missed a game all season. and he's just, become like this incredible hard hat guy. And the other thing I would add is that like Sabonis is a player that like you're building a resume for Hall of Fame, status. And I don't know if he'll get there, but if you get up to 4 all-star games, that kind of puts you in the realm. You probably need 2 more before you're considered more of like a guaranteed uh, Hall of Famer. But, of course, he needs some postseason success as well. Um, but that's kind of where I'm at. I just think Sabonis is building his resume, and you can't ask a player to do any more than what he's done. Like certainly there aren't players in the league that are doing what he's doing. He's just been an absolute
Well,
beast.
yeah, I mean, he is. I think I didn't think it'd become an AD Domas kind of discussion, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who averages 5 points more a game in AD, and his
And a
rebounds are
better
only
shot
point.
blocker.
Yeah, I mean that's just it. I think again, coaches reward defense, and AD has been sensational on the defensive end. Look, the team sucks. I'm not a fan.
Oh,
They
yeah.
did win the in-season tournament, but uh, I have not been a fan of what the Lakers are doing or have done necessarily. But numbers wise, I mean, he's only point 0.9 away from where Domas is on the rebounding end. He's fourth in rebounds.
Okay.
Um, it's like again, his numbers are fantastic. He's 17th in scoring, and again, scoring is up. So there are a lot of scorers that are not going to be in consideration necessarily. But
Yep.
I think what I look at, like and I don't know if you've made a list, James. I have, so I'll just kind of play along here. Here are my locks, and again, this is where I think coaches are going to go. Anthony
Okay.
Edwards for sure. Okay, so you get
Yep.
7 reserves, and these are all named by the coaches, and we're just talking about the West. We don't have to do the East. Anthony Edwards is a lock. Steph Curry is a lock, and here's why.
Yep.
Coaches love the guy. He's a generational talent. People want to see him in the All-Star game. I mean, and he's putting up incredible numbers. When you can shoot like that in this type of league, it doesn't matter. You're Steph Curry. You're going to be there. I agree with you with Devin Booker. To me, he's a lock to make it. I don't think that it's going to be even close. I think Devin Booker is a shoe-in this year, based off the numbers alone, and based off really what happened last year. I don't think he was rewarded last year. He comes back out, plays better. Phoenix is on the upswing a little bit. They seem to have their shit kind of figured out. So to me, Devin Booker is definitely in there. I think Kawhi Leonard is absolutely going to get rewarded for the games he's played. He's been fantastic. His availability has been fantastic. Kawhi Leonard is in. I do think AD and Domas are locks. So to me, that's 6 players right there, and you only need one more. And here's what's crazy about that list: you have no Pelicans representation. Do you give Kyrie Irving, who I don't think people realize is having an incredible season?
Yeah, but
Um,
he's missed more games than Joel Embiid. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I mean
he's
that
barely eligible.
to me
Yeah.
takes him out. I'm with you there, but you have no Pelicans representation. And if you had to choose one, in my opinion, it's Brandon Ingram over Zion Williamson, and it's about availability.
Yeah.
And Brandon Ingram has been fantastic. Do the coaches reward defense and go Rudy Gobert? Do you give another Timberwolf? I kind of outlaid that situation a minute ago.
Yeah.
And then oh yeah, you have a guy named De'Aaron Fox who's been very steady and fantastic. But the Kings are identical to what they were last year, essentially. Some would still think that that's a disappointment. Jamal Murray, I think, would get some consideration, and there's plenty of other guys you can talk about. But to me, if I think they're giving one, I think, I mean, and then I didn't even mention Paul George.
Yeah.
So do you give another Clipper? So I don't know. I think if you're picking one there, I just want to see representation. So I think it's going to be Brandon Ingram. That would be the pick that I would make.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Pelicans have been like just so incredible that you have to have representation. We're not talking about like OKC, right?
Right.
We're not talking about Minnesota that has to because they're at the top of the West. I mean, the Pelicans are the 7th seed right now. And like again, Kyrie has been great, but they're 48 games in, and I think he's only played 33 games, something like that. Maybe I'm off by a smidge there, but I'll look. Yeah, he's played. Oh no, he's played 27. Like I'm not even considering him. He's not even eligible
Right.
already
No,
for
I'm
postseason awards.
I'm with you. The numbers are fantastic, but the availability is
Yeah,
not there. I just wanted to throw that out there in terms of just overall consideration. But we don't even mention the Thunder. I think there's no team, there's no player else outside of Shea Gilgeous Alexander who's a starter in the game that is worthy of an All-Star appearance, in my opinion.
No, no, yeah, Jalen Williams is been really good, but it's not even close. Like, he's at,
Yeah,
like,
so is Chet.
17, 18 points a game.
Right.
Yeah, and Chet's been intriguing, but, Chet will be there as part of the rookie sophomore game, and so will Williams. So they're gonna have their representation, as far as, like, at All-Star weekend. Whether or not you're getting the ultimate representation in the All-Star game, I just don't buy it. And I also
Yeah.
I don't buy the Minnesota thing. I don't for as good a season as Cat has had, I'm not giving him an all-star bid just because I think that there are better players who are more impactful for their team. And he might even split the vote a little bit with him and Gobert. So,
Right.
like,
Well,
yeah,
and
I think it'll
that's the
be
thing.
intriguing.
Will the coaches reward defense? So let me just play devil's advocate for you.
Hmm.
Say the Kings are sitting atop the West with a 34-14 overall record, which is what, second best record in the NBA?
Yeah.
First best record in the West? Are you making the same argument?
Um, no, I
Like
don't
at
know.
that
I
point,
mean,
do you say, "Oh, Fox and Sabonis have to be in"?
well, I would because I mean they were both all NBA last year,
No, I'm with you,
and
and that to you're I'm with you. I'm with you. Great. That's
and realistically, their stats are better, both of them. So than they were last year, and the Kings are the same team. And so, like, while it's an end of season award, I would still say that you have to consider that they, at the end of last season, they were top 15 players in the league. Per
right.
That's what all NBA is, and actually, they were number 11 and number 12 in voting. So you can even put that a little bit further, right? So for me, I don't know, how it's going to work out, but I know Fox came out and told our friend Chris Biederman he doesn't want to be there.
Well, he's also told us that for 2 years now. And
He
and
has, but
that does bring up an interesting question to ponder, okay?
yeah,
Does a player's want to or give a damn about the whole event change the calculus of putting them there? And to me, I would say no, because at the end of the day, the NBA All-Star game is going to become and has become with a lot of the stars something that they'd rather not do, you know? And that shouldn't be rewarded because if you have the ability to opt out of it and have a longer break for the season or for the all-star break and not have to go and have your all-star break tinkered with to where you have to make appearances and play in a game that you'd rather not play in, then you're going to start to see a lot of people opt not to do it.
it'll
So that
become the Pro
shouldn't be
Bowl.
rewarded. Right. It'll become the Pro Bowl. So you should not reward that. And boy, because if that were the case, you'd have Steph Curry would be. I mean, Steph Curry at least understands his place in the game and understands what it means for him to be there. He's already going to play the event with Sabrina Ionescu from the WNBA and have that shooting competition, and that'll be fun. But uh, and oh, by the way, yeah, you've got the Warriors getting an All Star game here in the next couple years. So I don't know. I don't think it would be the best precedent to set if people say, "Oh, you don't want to be there," well, we're not going to send you there.
No, I totally agree, and I think even like Fox has said it, but he hasn't said it like that. And I honestly think that he's gotten comfortable saying it, like to people like you and I. And in that situation, I just think it came across maybe the wrong way. I'm sure that the first thing that happened as soon as like the B posted that story, like Under Armour was on the phone, like, "Hey, bro, like
Yeah,
if you're going to All Star Weekend, you're going there representing us. We're gonna have like rooms filled with Under Armour shoes that are your shoes. We're gonna have events. We're gonna have all this stuff, and we need you to like figure it out. You need to be part of this and not fight us on this." And he creates his own PR nightmare in a certain sense, just because if you want to be one of the faces of the league, you got to go to All Star Weekend. That's what it's
yeah,
about. And like you and I have talked about this. I would also like if we were sitting around hanging out with De'Aaron, I would say, "Hey, man, like you understand that you have an opportunity to be a Hall of Famer, right? And things like All Star appearances, they matter, and you should want to be there. You should want to be represented, like a representative of the franchise and of the league, and I know it's a bear, and you'd rather spend the time hanging out with your wife and your little guy, but that doesn't mean you can't take them. It doesn't mean that you can't carve out a little bit of time, and, it's basically a PR event, and you gotta understand that being in the league and being a star in the league, that's what kinda comes with that.
Yeah,
So,
and he would turn around and say, "Yeah, but I
I
don't
don't care,
really care." Yeah,
but I don't care. And I don't care if
and
I make the haul. I just know I'm
right.
gonna make a whole lot of money and
Yeah.
generational wealth for me and, like, my family forever, and that's what I'm here
And
for.
if and again, it's a if I do the things and the plot of the plotting out the course that I, hope to take, those things take care of themselves. The accolades come. So it's a real he's an interesting study in the way an athlete is because he's such an in the moment type of guy. It's a live within the moment. When it's done, it doesn't dwell. It's such a the cliche of the day to day. Like you just take one day at a time, and it's a live within the moment type of thing. And you know it's probably one of the best ways and mindsets to have, but there are people who are much more aware of their brand and socially conscious of their of what they mean to their organizations and legacies and things like that. And sometimes they put that ahead of where they are in the moment. It's kind of a real cool Zen way to talk in terms of, you know, thought process
No,
and
I'm
mentalities and stuff, but
I'm with
psyches,
you.
it's crazy.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think there are people who just, like, they put too much stock in what people think and how they're viewed from the outside, and Fox has never been that guy. Like, I
No.
think, like, we've had it's been a pleasure being around him the last
Sure.
7 years, and he's a good kid, and, like, but he's also very opinionated and doesn't mind saying things that may ruffle feathers. He just doesn't care. So, let's get to a little bit of the game. So the Kings just
You
rattled
know,
off 4 straight wins. Go ahead.
one last thought, sorry. I do wanna point out as someone who was there at the game last year, it wasn't like it was the best showing for Sacramento Kings players
Oh, no, it's horrible.
outside of maybe Keegan Murray in the up next or next up challenge for the G for the, no, I'm sorry, for the Rising Stars challenge.
Rising Stars. Yeah,
Up
yeah.
up next is the, next up challenge is their thing is for the G League, which Scala BCR will be representing Stockton Kings, but, no, I think Keegan was fantastic, and I think he'll have another nice moment, with this game, but, yeah, I mean, Fox and Sabonis, like, and even Kevin Huerter in the three-point shootout were just kind of non-factors for the most part.
Yeah.
They didn't play a whole lot. They didn't really, have to do too much, so I think that could have gone just about as well as it could for someone like Fox who was, looking to kind of take it easy with a brand new newborn son, and maybe this year is a little bit different. Maybe he goes out there and if he makes it, he shows a little bit more of of an aggression and trying to have some fun and make an impact on the game. But we didn't see that with either one of them necessarily last year.
Yeah, I would hope that if Fox does make it, that he enjoys the moment a little bit more,
Yeah,
because it did not feel like, I think he was slighted. He wasn't too happy that he wasn't voted in, that he was an injury replacement. I think that was, or that, not even voting, but that he wasn't one of the initial, players that was invited. And even, he's always told us, yeah, it'll come. If I'm an all-star, I'll be an all-star. Like, I'll be an all-star because our team is better and because I'm the face of the franchise. That's when I'll be an all-star. And sure enough, that's kind of basically what happened. He makes the all-star team as like sort of the face of the franchise guy. Um yeah, I just think that like, I would hope that he would figure out that it is just fun and games. And you go out there and show people, like, some of the crazy things that you can do. And, but maybe he'll never be that way. Maybe he'll never really, like, buy in, like he does with his own team.
and I
Um,
know we talked about him being a replacement last year. I just want to point out he replaced Steph Curry
oh,
in that game.
that's right. That's right. Okay. Sean, the Kings just rattled off 4 straight wins. And somehow Harrison Barnes just looks like Harrison Barnes. And then all of a sudden they lose to the Heat. And I know everyone wants to get so high and so low off of every win and every loss, but I kind of feel like, in a weird way, losing to the Heat is a good thing.
Oh,
And yeah, I kind of feel like that. this team and the fan base, they really do like kind of ride. So they're like ride or die with every single moment, right? And they're on this roller coaster ride. And I think what the Kings started to show that maybe this 4-game winning streak on the heels of a 4-game losing streak, that they had figured things out, that Harrison Barnes was back and that Kevin Herter's back. And all of a sudden they're going to be the team from last year, but maybe even better. And they're going to roll. And then boom, they lay an egg against Miami. And it wasn't horrible. They couldn't hit shots, but at the same time, I think it's sort of like that wake up call that like, look, it doesn't like a 4-game win streak doesn't matter because we're a week away from a 4-game losing streak again. This
Right.
team, as is currently constructed, is not right. It's not a perfect formula and it needs help. And they need to go out and be aggressive and try to fill some of the voids in this team. Now, they can wait till summer and they can say, we're just going to let and see what happens this season. But I think everybody kind of knows what's going to happen this season. Whether it's like a first round exit or a second round exit, you can kind of feel like who this team is, right? They're good.
You're
They're not
saying
great.
if they stay as currently
If they
constituted.
stay as currently, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, constituted. I don't like this whole early season talk about fighting for a championship and all that stuff. I just like they haven't been good enough. They haven't been consistent enough. And so when I look at this team, I think I hope they weren't buying in too much about this 4-game win streak. And I think like losing that 4-game win streak, if all of a sudden this thing goes to 7 and you're facing this fact that you could either keep the team together on February 8th for the trade deadline, or you can maybe go get a piece that could help you improve down the road. I would hope that they would not factor in the 4-game or the 7-game win streak, that they would more factor in the fact that that 4-game win streak came on the heels of a 4-game losing streak, which was on the heels of like a 2-game win streak and a 2-game losing streak. And like they are so inconsistent that they need help to find consistency.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, they I think to me what will speak loud, and I could be wrong here. This is just me speculating. But I think if I'm in that front office, I think that and collectively with head coach Mike Brown and maybe even some of the captains of the team, like I I think more so than the win streaks, you just look at the overall record. And as it's currently situated, you're what, 6 games out of first place at last check. 27-19 is what they fell to after the loss in Miami. And pretty fantastic record. I mean, you're there is starting you are seeing separation though in the Western Conference, right? Like you're seeing, I'll bring up the standings here real quick. It's like, T-Wolves, Thunder, Clippers, Nuggets, all within a game and a half of each other. The next two teams are both tied 6 games out of 6 games back are the Kings and the Suns. And
Yeah.
that rounds out your top 6. So you're only a game outside of the play-in tournament, which is the 7th seed held by the Pelicans, and you got the Mavericks, the Lakers, and the Jazz. So you're starting to see some separation here. It's not so huddled up anymore, and I wonder how that'll look in another week or two as we inch even closer to this trade deadline. But make no mistake, like I think this still is a very good team, and the whole good to great, like I know it's been banged into everybody's head, and that's the mantra, and they're right. It's hard to go from good to great, but this isn't a great team, at least in my estimation. I can't say that in good conscience and believe that.
I
That could be
agree with
different
you.
though. They might be able to say, well, we haven't been able to prove that they're not a great team yet. And in which case you know, I can understand that given what trajectory that they're looking at and keeping this team together and buying into the continuity, and this team doesn't have to necessarily represent the team that plays in April. So I do get that. And even without making a trade, the same statement can be true. Um but overall, especially if you're, overall, I think there could be some people that think, okay, we've got some struggles out of the way, maybe relying on catching a wave here or a run here that makes you kind of forget about some of those, shortcomings along the way. I guess. I don't know that I'm totally all bought in on that, but I could understand that thought process anyway. But to where they are now, I just don't think that there's a move out there that makes them that takes them from good to great. And if all you are is going to be good or pretty good or very good, however, whichever one you want to call them, maybe you just see it through. And that's why I feel like if there's not a move out there that takes you from good to great, and that you're convinced takes you from good to great, then you wait. You just wait until the moment presents itself.
Okay, my counter to that would be, like, you know who you are and what you're supposed to be, right? And
But
you kinda have an idea, right? If
I
there's
would
a move
agree with
out
that.
there.
I would
What's
agree with
that?
that, but I would definitely agree with what you're about to say, but I do see the logic of somebody saying they're not convinced of that yet, right? Like,
Oh, no, I
they
I could
almost
see
need
that.
to like, if let's just pretend I'm Monte McNair for a second, wearing a vest, and, uh, and I'm telling you, James and Sean, that I'm not convinced that this team isn't great based on coming into another season where we look identical, because at this time last year we wanted to see what this team looked like in the playoffs.
Mhm.
And I would tell both of you, James and Sean, that I want to see this team in the playoffs. And I'm not concerned about how we've won or lost. It's very possible that we can catch fire, look more like what we're looking like, tinker with a few things here, and we've been doing that for the benefit of the playoffs. We've had Mike Brown put us in situations that will benefit us in the playoffs in April. And I want to see what this team looks like in April against in another playoff series before I fully tinker with this roster. It takes me from good to great right away.
Okay, I can
I
buy
made you
that,
yawn.
but
I made you yawn as Monty McNair. I bored you.
no, it's the sunshine is coming through the window next to me and, like, lighting me up and, like, giving me the chills.
Yeah.
Um, so, so Sean, I get what you're saying. My
I was
counter
Monty
would be
McNair. I was not
this.
Sean. I was not Sean there. I was Monty
You are
McNair. I
not
was in
Sean.
full
Okay,
character.
this is how I would respond to a poofy vest wearing Monty McNair.
Yes, let's
I
do
would
it.
say if the season ended today, you would play the Denver Nuggets in the first round.
Mhm.
If you slid back a game, if you move up a game, you're still playing the Denver Nuggets as a 4 or 5. If you slide back a game, as of today, you would be playing the Los Angeles Clippers.
Wait, are you playing the
Like,
Nuggets? No, you'd be playing the Thunder, wouldn't you?
no, the
Oh,
four
you're right.
five.
Sorry, 4-5. You're right. My bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
apologies.
then the 3-6 is the Clippers,
Yeah.
right? So my point is that you don't really got a shot. Like, I don't think you can beat the Clippers in a 7-game series, and I think that while the matchup is decent against Denver and you've played well against Denver in the past, you're playing the defending champs. The experience level, everything else, like, they've got a huge, like, huge margin on you where they walked through the playoffs last year steamrolling everyone they played. Like, they were relentless. So, I get what you're saying. My point of view would be that, you're not realistically, you're not good enough to compete for a championship. I'm going to keep an eye open for a deal that may take a step back today, may put me in danger of being a 7-8 seed if it gives me a better opportunity to potentially be a second, third round playoff team next year. And I don't know if that deal's out there, but I'm open to whatever. I'm not buying what my team is selling over a 4-game win streak because I got 41 games before that that showed me that they're totally inconsistent. And then they showed you again, they lost to a Heat team that had lost 7 in a row, and it wasn't very good. So that's where I'm at. I'm kind of like of the opinion that, like, I don't have to make a move, but I do believe that you have to make a move because your team's not good enough. It's not good
Well,
enough to
yeah.
be who you want it to be. It's good enough to be a playoff team. It's good enough to maybe somehow find a way out of the first round, but I don't know about that. And especially with the teams around you. Like, there's a lot of good teams around you that, maybe it's the Suns that move up. And sure, you've played the Suns okay, but again, you get to the playoffs, that's a different team. So I don't know, Sean. I think that it's a difficult decision, right? Like, what do you do if you're the Kings?
Yeah, I mean, and again, you mentioned Nuggets being in 4. I think they'll finish higher. Um, the season doesn't end on February 1st, obviously. But I will say this: what if
But
we
they
just
might
play a
push the
game?
Clippers down to you.
Right. Let's just play that out. Let's assume that the standings stay the way they are, and just we can take the numbers away. What I'm going to do with this little game is say, okay, the Pelicans and the Mavericks, since they're 7 and 8 right now, they emerge from the play-in tournament. Okay, so they represent the 7 and 8 seed. So that means the
Mhm.
Lakers, the Jazz, the Warriors, and the Rockets aren't making the playoffs. Okay, if we look at this group of teams here, the 7 that the Kings would be grouped with, let's just play a game. Can the Kings beat Minnesota in a playoff series?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Now, I'm going to write mine down here. I'm going to
They're
say
one and
no.
one on the season.
Right. I'm going to say no. Okay. Can the
Okay.
Kings beat the Thunder in a playoff series?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I agree with you. So hold on. You say that's 2 that you say. I say 1. Okay. Can the Kings beat the Clippers in a playoff series?
No.
Or when I say this, I should say would you pick them to win? I won't say could they, because of course they could. You say no, right?
No, I'd have them losing in 5 or 6.
Okay. I'm going to say yes. So we're
Oh,
still 2-1. Yeah,
just
I actually
because
do think
Paul George and Kawhi Leonard will be hurt by then?
that part, I think they're peaking, and I think you have a perfect recipe to punish this team. You've got a dominating a guy who dominates the boards, and you can run them off the floor. You know, they've shown the ability over the years, even with Kawhi Leonard playing, that sometimes they don't have the whole interest in playing that type of game with Sacramento. So that's the only reason I would say that. Okay, Denver, obviously, I think we're both going to say no there, right? That's a championship
I
caliber
think
team, bad matchup.
it is. Well,
Right.
no, I think the
No, it is.
matchup's
It is.
okay.
Do you?
Y Yeah, I mean, the Kings
No.
have played well against them over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
But
but
I
not in a
still
playoff
think
series.
no, 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 no. I think Kings lose in 6.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, you can beat Phoenix.
So you say yes. That's such a tough one. I'm going to come back to them.
'Cause
I'm
I
going to
don't
come
think
back
they
to them.
have enough depth.
Pelicans.
No, you can't beat them.
You can't beat them. I'm with you. And anybody who thinks you can, you're fooling yourself. You haven't won a game yet. The Dallas Mavericks.
Yes, you can beat Dallas.
I'm with you on that. Okay. The Lakers.
Yes, you can beat the Lakers.
That's such a tough one too.
What were they
Yeah,
3 and 1
I'm gonna
last
say
year, and
yes.
aren't they
Yeah, I'm gonna
haven't
say
they already
yes.
won the season series this year?
Yep. Or wait, why did I say the Lakers? We weren't doing Lakers didn't make it. Take that away. I went to 9. Okay. So of that, you're actually more optimistic than I am. Let's just say for sake of argument here, we'll be the same. Because I take the Sun series and I say, yeah, I think they can beat them. We're both there's 4 teams in the 7 that we believe that they can beat.
Okay.
So judging by that, does that change your calculus?
Well, yeah, it tells me that that I
You
can
just
beat 4
told
teams
Monty
right now.
McNair. You just told Monty McNair that you're not beating this team. You're not beating this team. But then you look at it and you're beating more than half of the teams that are
But
available.
Sean, this is the problem.
I'm Monty McNair again.
If I can add one player that could change the trajectory of this team, whether it's this year or for next year, and that
Right.
could help me beat a Clippers, that could help me beat a Denver Nuggets, or could help me beat
Yeah.
a Pelicans team, I gotta do it.
Well, yeah, but
Because
I
it is
think,
open, Sean, it's
but
open.
they're yeah, I think that's a different discussion. However, I think again, is there a trade out there that takes them from good to great? That was the initial discussion. It wasn't the can you add a tertiary player or even a rotational player that can help put you over the top to help your playoff run. We're talking about a altering piece that maybe not a franchise altering piece like don't a significant piece that you're willing to sacrifice first round picks and some of the makeup of your team that obviously plays into the continuity aspect that Monty McNair and this organization is betting on coming into the season. So in playing the role that I think I've done very well as a I like to call myself a thespian or even a you know character actor or maybe even more. I'll give myself a different I'm a method actor.
A
um
method actor.
yeah in my outstanding role playing here of Monty McNair, who told you, shame on you, James Ham and Sean Cunningham, that you don't believe in us. You just said that they can beat 4 out of the 7 teams in a playoff series in the Western Conference. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Okay, but here's how I would answer that question.
Monte McNair.
If Monte McNair, you switch out some sort of combination of players that include whether it's Harrison Barnes or what however you do it, and you switch him out for Jeremy Grant, I think you can beat the Clippers.
Oof.
I think you can beat the Pelicans. I and now I'm up to 6.
I don't agree with that, and I'm not Monte
Well,
McNair at this point.
but you understand what I'm saying.
I
Like
do understand.
there
You
is a
you're just coming up with
pathway.
a sure.
Yeah, there's a pathway ahead where one player can make a difference. If I'm going into a series against the Denver Nuggets and I've got a guy like Jeremy Grant to go up against a guy like Aaron Gordon, okay, switchable
What's he
forwards
gonna
and
do?
Keegan Murray and
Jeremy Grant is
what
not
do
a
you
defender, sir.
no, he's a much better defender than what they have right now. Long, athletic, 7'3" wingspan,
In
has been
theory,
a defender
doesn't
throughout his
rebound,
career.
never won,
Doesn't rebound,
makes a
hasn't
ton
won. I get
makes a
you. I get you.
boat mode, and he chucks shots, he takes a ton of shots, loves a corner 3. Did you watch the game last night?
No, but, like, let's be honest,
The
him
game
on
last
that
night,
team versus yeah, they did.
which Portland did win. Wasn't a
But
great sample size of what you get with Jeremy Grant.
Jeremy Grant on a team that you would hope that he would fit into like a role. Like,
Okay. Well, we'll
he
play
is
that out though. So use him as an example though. How much better does Jeremy Grant make the Sacramento Kings?
that's a good question, but, like, if you can beat 6 out of the other,
Does he take you from good to great?
of the 7, he might.
He won't.
He might. I
He
don't
won't.
know. I don't know for sure, but, like, he's a type of player that you need for this team.
No, they
Eh
do need a type of player. I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
yeah,
I don't push back on that one. I do push back on Jeremy Grant. They do need a type of player, but again, I don't think that he takes you to that next level. And again, giving up some of the things that you'd have to give up to get a player like that who starts at what $29 million and works his way up.
I think it's
That's tough.
36 in the final year. Yeah. I
Oh,
think he's at 25, 26.
that's horrible.
No,
Also,
I get you, like, and that's why I bring up Kyle
yeah,
Kuzma all the time, who I think Kyle Kuzma
I I'm
is
with you
not as
there. We
good
can have that discussion.
defensively,
Right.
but Kyle Kuzma goes 25 and a half, 23 and a half, 21 and a half, and 19 and a half over the next 4 years. I'm giving up a first round pick and I'm in a Kyle Kuzma deal, I'm trying to work a deal where I don't have to give up Herter or Barnes. And I think
Hmm.
you can because I think in all honesty, the Wizards shouldn't really be looking at players. The Wizards should be looking at the whatever draft capital. And I'm willing to give up a first round pick and maybe 1 or 2 second round picks to help them and where they're starting in their rebuild. But there is a way to do it. It's a 4-for-1, but there is a way to do it where you would like again, I don't like just throwing players' names out there, but like money wise, Chris Duarte, Davion Mitchell, um, Trey Lyles, and a minimum scale guy, whether it's Alex Lynn or it's Kessler Edwards or it's Colby Jones, you can actually do a 4-for-1 and get Kyle Kuzma. And then I think you're really talking about some sort of improvement that's great, right? Because now you go from your number 2 bench guy being Trey Lyles to your number 2 bench guy being, like, Harrison Barnes, and that means that you have a better player than Harrison Barnes in your starting 5 in Kyle
Right.
Kuzma, and not just I don't like, on paper, he might be better statistically, but realistically, Kyle Kuzma brings things that Harrison Barnes can't bring. He's a longer, more athletic player and a much, much, much better rebounder. He's not as good a shooter, but I think Harrison Barnes off the bench, now all of a sudden your top 7 become really, really, really good. And that's where I think you can take a leap and a bound. I think if you're talking about Jeremy Grant, it's really difficult to make a move like that with Jeremy Grant to assemble a trade where you're doing a 3 or 4-for-1 without diving into, whether Kevin Herter or Harrison Barnes are going in the trade. But I don't know. That's kind of where
I,
I'm at.
I from a numbers standpoint, not only is the contract better, I just think Kyle Kuzma is a much better player than Jeremy Grant. I
Huh.
mean, he just impacts the game in so many different ways. He rebounds better. He can be a little bit of a playmaker. He's 6'9" as opposed to 2 inches shorter. Jeremy Grant. I just
Yeah, but
look. You
we
need
talked.
length. You
I
absolutely
agree,
need length.
but I'll say this, Sean. If I were to tell you, like you've looked him up, but if I were to tell you that Harrison Barnes is 6'8", you watch both of them play in a game, and Harrison Barnes is 6'8", and Jeremy Grant is 6'7", you
Right.
would not believe that. You would believe that Jeremy Grant is 6'9" or 6'10", and that Harrison Barnes is 6'6", 6'7".
I think it just has to do with more the person who has the more activity to them tends to
Yeah,
sometimes win out in that regard. You
I
you
have
look alarmed.
a
You look
woodpecker
like there's
just
a spider right
flew.
next to you.
No, he just flew up under the eave of my house, and he's tapping right above my bar window.
Can we
Stupid
hear
little.
it? Can it
He
get it on the
stopped.
microphone?
Let's see if he starts going again. No, he's quiet.
No. All right.
If he starts tapping, I'll turn the mic and we'll be able to
Put
capture
your
the
hand up.
woodpecker.
Do your hand up. Yeah, I want to hear that.
I caught him out of the corner of my eye, fly down and up and then donk donk donk. Like, come on, bro,
He
stop eating my
agrees.
house.
He's saying,
Yeah,
"Here, here."
that's right. That's right.
So I don't think we
Okay.
really accomplished much there. Like, I think we're both like, yeah, if there's a trade that you can make and you can go out and do it, I think they, absolutely will. I just don't know that they're going to overvalue and overspend because I think the wholehearted belief still is very much believing in the continuity of the team and seeing this team uh, do something in the playoffs. To be able to, like this season, it's interesting. I think everyone gets so caught up in the season that they're in. It's like at the end of the day all you have to do is make the playoffs again and you're a pretty successful season. Now that
I agree.
probably hurts because everyone's goal is to ultimately win the championship, but I would agree with you. I think and actually I think if you ask members of that front office, they might even have it more of a 5-2 that they can beat those teams in playoffs as opposed to the 4-3 that we had.
Okay, so I guess here's another like abstract idea that I'll pitch at you here. Would you would you rather make a move where you took some of your role players that you currently have and you tried to swing for the fence with a guy like Kuzma, where you push down some of your rotational players down a spot? Or would you rather take the back end of your rotation at your very back, maybe even like beyond back into the rotation, and try to improve the 7, 8, 9 on your team? So in one
Hmm.
situation, you're not committing something long term, but you're going out and trying to improve, like, again, who your backup point guard is, who, that other guy is who's coming off the bench, the 7, 8, 9 portion of this team. Or would you rather take a larger push where you are giving up some of your current 7, 8, 6, 7, and 8, 9, and but you're adding a player that would force a player like Harrison Barnes into that second half of your rotation?
I would be coy and I would answer that question in it with a
With a
question
question?
almost. Yeah. No, I would here's why. Because I think if you're upgrading what your current rotation is, that is the more likely to take you from good to great. The players that you rely on, your core, your 1 through 6, or if you want to throw in 7, I think Mike Brown would argue he only really has a true 6, and after that, there's a pretty not a steep drop off, but there's a drop off in terms of the trust factor. So if you've identified the players in your core and for the sake of argument, let's just say that you've identified Harrison Barnes, Kevin Herter, um, and you're comfortable with pretty much everybody else around that, right? So, like, obviously, Domas and Fox, you're comfortable with. Keegan Murray, you're not wanting to separate with. Malik Monk, he's part of this year. Like him
Yep.
to be part of next year, although he is on quite a slide, and you hear a lot of people talking about Malik Monk lately. And am I forgetting one?
No, I mean, the only other
No,
guy is
that's
Trey
6, right?
Lyles.
Well, yeah, so he'd be 7, right?
Yeah, he's 7.
He's
And
7.
after 7, I don't think Mike feels all that comfortable with anybody else. I think
Yeah,
he
and
feels
I would
okay,
yeah, and
but
I would say I would eliminate Trey Lyles from that, even though with respect to him, he has been that guy you can rely on. My greater point though is he's still grouped in my mind to the 7 and down. The top
okay.
6, I feel like if you feel you can like you can upgrade one of those positions, that's going to best set the table from going from good to great. If you're trying to upgrade 7, 8, 9, 10, or whatever to help bolster what your 1 through 6 is, maybe, but I think it's a tougher path and not as realistic to go from good to great.
I agree. I think we're on the same page. The
Right.
way to improve this team is to improve the top 6,
Yeah, I agree.
and hopefully hold on to the top 6 while improving the top 6. And
Mm,
maybe, if you
I
can
don't
hold on to the top 7.
I'm not I'm with you, but again, I think it gets into that thing, and I almost sound like a broken record at this point. But I keep saying the things of I don't think it's at least feasible right now to get the type of player you want to get with what you're willing to part with. And
Okay.
I think that is where ultimately why I feel things will kind of remain in this, like the core will ultimately remain the same. And I think the argument would be we want to see what this team looks like in the postseason again.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
if you're okay with that, not you as James Ham and me as Sean Cunningham, but like if you as a organization are okay with that, I think it's a good problem to have because again, you're doing the double down of last year. You're trying to see
yep.
how this team can respond, but you also go into the offseason with a little bit more clarity. Now, one could argue you should already have that clarity, but the landscape changes so much differently with every passing day.
I
And
guess. I
I mean,
I kinda have.
did you expect the Timberwolves and the Thunder to be leading 1 and 2 in the West?
No, but I also don't know that they'll be 1 and 2 in the West by the end of the season. Like,
No, I get it.
sure,
Yeah.
that's where they are right now, but, it's just like last year. Did we expect the Kings to finish 3rd? No. Actually, at the All-Star break, I still didn't think the Kings were gonna finish in the top 4, and I thought that it would they would probably fall down to, 5 or 6, and they didn't. They responded, and they played well in the second half. I also think that, like, the way that Harrison Barnes has played lately, the way that Kevin Huerter has played lately, the fact that Keegan Murray has been developed throughout the first half of the season and is up to 16 plus a game and is showing more and more of the flashes of brilliance that you as a franchise wanted to see. Like, all of those things play into this, but I also know that you still have, like, glaring holes and that, like, trying to do Band-Aid fixes at your 7, 8, 9 in the rotation isn't really gonna help you.
Yeah.
I think it can maybe help you here. It might be able to get you deeper into a series or through a series. Like, I will keep saying what I kept, like, beating a drum last year, go out and get Mason Plumlee, go out and get Matisse Thybulle, right? If you don't think that Matisse Thybulle and Mason Plumlee would have helped you in a first round series where you got dominated because Sabonis needed help on the rebounding glass and you lost a series because you didn't have another elite defender to throw at Steph Curry, I kind of like will disagree with you. Like those two, while they're not earth shattering, change everything type guys, they would have helped you get through the first round and into the second. Like we could argue that point,
Yeah.
but I would
Wi
much prefer to have Matisse Thybulle trying to defend Steph Curry than not have Matisse Thybulle and go into a series and lose because the guy kills you in game 7.
and the reality is he's not defending Steph Curry.
Well, yeah, but the guys that you had defending, you would have
No,
had some
I
at
know.
least
I get
someone
you though.
else.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, you get me. So, okay, let's get
Would
to
The cynic would say, would Mike Brown
oh
have left him on the bench in game 7 like he did with Davion Mitchell?
no. No, because he would have put him in instead of Terrence Davis because at least Thibault has a size.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a mess.
It's a
That's
mess.
hindsight,
Hindsight,
Sean.
yeah.
Even though it was something I was
Focus.
telling everyone beforehand. Okay, let's get to the business of basketball. Sean,
James.
Are the Kings? No. Uh,
Are they done?
I, no. Are they going to make a trade? Yeah. No. I think we keep talking about, like, we brought up Trey Lyles, we've brought up, like, the potential of trading Harrison Barnes or Kevin Herter in the past. We've talked about so many different players that, would they trade them? Would they not trade them? How would that work? And I think we kind of skip around one player who might have a salary that helps you acquire a different player, and
Oh.
that is Sasha Vezenkov.
Hmm.
And it's at $6 million. When you start piecing together deals, and you got like a $5 million uh, Davion Mitchell, and you got a $4 million Chris Duarte. You start playing, Trey Lyles at $8 million. You get $6 million at Sasha. Like, what do the Kings do in that situation? Because they did this crazy full court press, and they did all kinds of work to get this guy to come over, but he really does struggle to stick in the rotation. And sometimes you put him out there, and he looks like John Turturro from Mr. Deeds, and he's super sneaky, and he scores a
Huh.
bunch of baskets.
Didn't think you'd have a
Like,
Mr. Deeds reference.
well, he just like shows up. I'm very, very sneaky, sir. You just
Yes.
like, hey, look at that. He's underneath the basket all by himself for a layup. How did that happen? Um, I don't. I like what Sasha brings, but I have this, like, clear picture in my mind that there's no way for the Kings to have Keegan Murray, Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles, and Sasha Vezenkov as their four forward rotation, because none of them are long and super athletic and shot block and do all those other things, right?
Right.
And so he might be one of the pieces that you would have to use, and I'm just wondering, do you think that their all-in mentality with him in the beginning is made him sort of an off the table type player? I mean, I'm not saying he's off the table, but, like, what do they do with Sasha, who is it's a 3-year, I think, $19 million deal. It's like 6.5, and 7 or something like that. But the last year's a partial guarantee or it's non-guaranteed. But I'm kind of confused with how to put him in the category of assets, because
Yeah.
I don't know how the Kings would view him.
I don't think the shine is off of him. After now seeing him through however many games in a Kings uniform, and I think a lot of that has to do with the way, for context, the way Mike Brown has talked about bringing him along, getting his feet wet in the NBA, seeing how he adjusts, and comparing him to somebody like what they did in San Antonio with Manu Ginobili. And I'd even argue Peja Stojakovic for the time for when he first came over to Sacramento. Although, again, with his shooting ability, which is much different than what even Sasha, who is a fantastic shooter. I mean, Peja was absolute one of the best you'd ever seen. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
when you can shoot like that, you will fit in and you will be able to make up for a lot of ground. And I think Sasha is in a situation where he comes to a good team. The Kings weren't necessarily good when Peja came over. You know,
Hmm.
Ginobili came into a good team, so I do like um, that kind of comparison there because he's getting his feet wet. He has room to grow, and I don't think the shine is off of that. That being said, no, I mean, he's certainly not untouchable, but he's got such a very like a, appealing contract, whether you keep him or you don't. So I think if I was to guess, I mean, by no means are the Kings necessarily dangling him to teams, but I'm curious to see what the market value is for him. Is there a market to where are people salivating over him? I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think they want to see more of a sample size from him and see that he can get a lot of the things that he's shown on the floor where he can show flashes, he can show a grittiness, an ability to get into the paint, and obviously ability to shoot. But there's some rotational issues and defensive problems that he gets caught up in. Maybe he gets in a more simplified system and it looks a little bit different, but I'm curious as to find out what the market would be like for him. I don't know that people are lining up to inquire about him on the daily, but if I'm the Kings, I'm certainly not against moving him, especially if it makes you better. Um, you would kind of feel bad for him for obviously coming over to Sacramento and adjusting his lifestyle to ultimately get it done with Sacramento. But at the end of the day, he knows it's a business. He knows that he runs the risk of being traded at any moment. So very, very manageable. I think he's had an absolute great mindset, and he's a hard worker. Um, there's I'm sure some things that have crept into his mind at time or two, and wondering if he's made the right decision. But at the end of the day, I think this is a trial by fire kind of a situation for him, and he's had to experience DNPs that he wouldn't have experienced overseas, and he's playing a lot more. I mean, when you look at the games, they just play a lot more games in the United States and in the
Oh,
NBA.
yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
that too can be an adjustment. That's why it doesn't always translate. So I think this is almost like that. Okay, this is your get your feet wet year, and I think there'd be a very healthy appetite to see what he looks like with a year under his belt.
Yeah, I think so too. And like, look, I'm not advocating that they trade any of these guys. I'm just saying, like, if somebody comes to you and they want to create a deal that somehow allows you to avoid trading Harrison Barnes or Kevin Herter and to keep like your true core together while adding a piece and he's part of a larger trade package, I don't think the Kings can say no.
Right.
Like if that's part of like a deal that gets you somewhere. And like there are all kinds of trades that are we're not even thinking of and seeing, but like you have no idea where it all ends. And so if I'm the Kings, I have to at least keep an eye out for potential deals just because again, he's at like it's like 6.4 million bucks and that's actually when you start piecing that together with some of these other contracts, it's actually it makes things a little more well, it gives you more options, right? Like and the Kings still no matter what, they have to find a way to get the long, athletic, shot blocking, whatever guy to play on that front line. And that probably means you need to trade one or more of the guys that aren't that in order to, improve this roster. So I don't
Well,
know.
and
Interesting stuff.
to that point, James, I mean, he's right in that middle. He's surrounded when you look in salary. He's surrounded by Trey Lyles and Davion Mitchell. Trey at $8 million a year, and Trey who goes from right around 5 million all the way up to 6.5 million in the next year. So um, those guys are certainly in that same category, and I think you ask yourself the same question when it comes to them as well. Obviously, Davion is someone who doesn't become a restricted free agent until 25 26, and Trey Lyles unrestricted free agent the same year. 25 26 is actually when Sacramento has a club option for Sasha. So
Yeah.
um, certainly a part of it, but that hold that you're talking about, that salary cap area of how much money he makes is comparative to both Trey Lyles and Davion Mitchell.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's interesting because it's possible you need three or four of them in order
Yeah.
to make a deal that avoids sending out the big one. Right. So that's where it's gonna be a little complicated. So, okay, Sean. I think that we're all like waiting anxiously to figure out what's going to happen. It's been quiet. Like on people ask me all the time, "What have you been hearing? Anything?" I got to be honest. I haven't heard anything in a little while. I've heard in maybe 2 weeks ago that the Kings were interested in Jeremy Grant. The Kyle Kuzma stuff pops up now and then, and we saw the report from Josh Robbins yesterday that the Wizards are really they're more realistic and know that they're not going to get 2 first round picks for Kyle Kuzma, but that they would still move off of Kyle Kuzma, and that's a deal that again, if I'm the Kings, I'm looking at just because it really does set your financial it helps you financially moving forward to if you were to cash in some of your smaller contracts for a younger player or some of your smaller contracts for a bigger player, sort of like that fantasy football thing where you got like 2 or 3 like really nice young wide receivers, but you want to trade for a really, really high end wide receiver and take those 3 and convert them into a higher end wide receiver. I think that's one of those options that I could see the Kings looking at where they're just like kind of manipulating the roster that way. But like all kinds of things could happen between now and next week. We do have All Star announcements tonight. I like
You
there
didn't
are
put together your
murmurs.
reserves. I put mine reserves. I showed mine. You didn't
Yeah,
show
no,
yours.
I think I was with you. The like I'm not putting AD in. Um,
So you put it, who do you put in over AD?
okay,
So you
so I
went
got Booker,
Edwards, Curry, Booker. Edwards, Curry, Booker.
Edwards, Curry, Booker.
Because you said Curry,
Um,
right? You know, I mean,
yeah,
are you
yeah,
picking it for
Edward.
you, or are you thinking the way the coaches will pick it?
If I were picking, I
Okay,
would
so this is for
have
you.
yeah Edwards, Curry, Booker. I'm putting Kawhi.
Kawhi,
I'm putting,
Do
and what do
Domas.
I get? I get 7, right?
Yeah, 7.
I'm putting Domas. I'm putting Fox. I am putting Fox in the All Star game, and then
Okay.
I've got one more. Who's my last one
You
that I'm
said
missing?
Edwards, Curry, Booker, Kawhi, Domas, Fox, and you got one more.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, we already said Booker.
Ingram, Rudy, Paul George, Zion Williamson, um, Cat Carl Anthony Towns, Laurie Markkinen, James
No,
Harden. I don't put James Harden. I don't even consider James Harden.
no, man. Um, boy, a coin flip between AD and Paul George.
Okay. So you'd probably go Paul
Yeah.
George.
No, I would. To be honest, I would probably go AD over Paul George.
Okay.
But they're so much better, and I can't imagine giving that team 2 All-Star representatives. So, oh,
Look what
I
you
mean, they're
just
just
did.
bad, man. They're just bad. Okay, no,
Yeah.
I'm going Paul George.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they are. I think they're, they're a team that, like, it's an island of misfit toys, and we talked about it before the season. They took all of these players that had never found success anywhere else and thought that they could just put them around AD and LeBron and find success. So, D'Angelo Russell is not, a guy who leads a team to championships, and like the same Lauren Wood and Rui Hachimura, and like they just kept bringing in these guys that have a track record of not winning games, and it is what it is. This is what happens when you try to, like. It really does feel like a 2K situation where you're just like you're making trades on 2K or signing guys on 2K without really looking at how they impact winning or anything else. And like I would prefer to the way that the Kings built their roster, where you brought in guys that you think you can put in winning situations and that they can respond. So just my own
Yeah.
personal view.
I
So
got you.
interesting. Okay. Sean, do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Do I have any final thoughts? I saw Godzilla -1. Have you heard of this?
No.
Dude, I so I had so many people telling me about this Godzilla movie, and I'm like, come on, how good could it be? It's really good, man.
Really?
It's like
Who's
black
in
and
it?
white. It's a complete Japanese movie, and
Oh.
there's no actor. It's not like the Matthew Broderick god awful one that they had in New York, and the
Wait,
Bryan
wasn't
Cranston
there
one they
like
had
a Gary
recently.
Oldham one?
Gold, yeah,
Yeah,
probably Gary Oldman, but,
Oldman. Yeah, yeah.
no, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like the Raymond Burr, he was in 1985 one. I mean, it's really quite good. I was shocked, and I saw it on the biggest screen possible, which was great, and yeah, really enjoyed it. Usually those type of movies don't get me, but I was all in, man. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Huh.
There's the 49ers stuff it was cool to be there at the NFC Championship and see them punch through, and there's going to be some fun 49er stuff over the next few couple weeks really, and
Yeah.
we get Niners and Chiefs again, your boy Mahomes against your beloved Niners, and we've
Yeah.
talked about it. We don't bet against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl in the postseason. Are you going to do it here?
I'm not making a bet. Uh, I'm going to have to say what I think. Um, but I don't know. I, eesh. I don't think you bet against Mahomes. I don't know.
Right?
It's not a win-win for me, but if like my favorite team has always been the Niners since I was a kid. But my next team is the Chiefs, just because I watch all of Mahomes games because, um, yeah. Oh, good good pointing out there, Sean. Um,
Well, and
yeah,
again, to that point though, like the Niners have had their backs against the wall twice now in the postseason and had to have these moments to save their season. So
oh no,
there's
that's
something kind
true.
of special about that.
Okay. Okay, so it brings us like if I were doing prize picks here, Sean.
Yes.
If I were doing prize picks, which I did, oh my gosh. We didn't talk
You're
about
not
prize
doing well.
picks from last week. No, I did fine,
You
right?
you were one off.
So
That was the way
oh,
you were the guy that almost won the like everything.
it was worse than that. Like for okay, so I've been having a good time doing prize picks. We had a game. What game was that, Sean? Um,
That was the Warriors game?
oh, maybe that was a Warriors game. Okay, so either way, I
First game of the road
had
trip, yeah?
yeah, maybe it was right. So um, again, we love doing this because first of all, it's a fun sponsorship, right? So, but this thing happened the other day, which like it ends up being absolutely horrible. It was the Kings versus the Charlotte Hornets. No, that's not the right one.
No, that was too far ago.
No, hang on, let me look. I've
Wait
got it
for
here.
it.
This is important. So this is why we play price. Well, why I play price. It was the Warriors game. So I chose the six selections, which I always do. And almost every single time I choose all more, which is my own bad way of playing price picks, right?
Yeah, don't follow
But
that advice.
yeah, don't ever follow my picks to the T because most of the time I'm way off. But I had Steph Curry with more than 5.5 rebounds. He finishes with 6. I have Kevin Herter at more than 2.5 3-point shots. He finishes with 3. I have Keegan Murray with more than zero point 0.5 dunks. He finishes with 1. I've got Harrison Barnes at more
Hard to
than 3.5 rebounds. He finishes with 4. Now I'm at 4 out of 6. We get to number. I got Domantas Sabonis. This is a wild one. I took Domantas Sabonis with more than more than 0.5 3-pointers. Right? Nailed it. He is 2. So because I do a 6 pick, and I'll be honest, transparency here. I did a $20 bet, but a lot of these picks were part of a promo they have where it's like goblins and something. So a
what
lot of
does that
these
mean?
picks were more difficult. They're almost like teaser picks, like where you're choosing things that are like Harrison Barnes probably was more like 2 rebounds. And Kevin Herter was probably more like 2 3-pointers. These are more difficult selections, right?
Mhm.
Because I chose 5 out of 6 were more difficult selections. I actually got I think the odds were crazy. The payout was crazy. So I had a potential $2,000 payout for a $20 bet, right? Everyone's with me still. My last one, all I needed was De'Aaron Fox at 29.5 points. He gets fouled in the key with like 40 seconds left. And for some reason, they don't put him at the line. I still don't know. The final play, Harrison Barnes rips down a rebound. He throws it to Kevin Herter. Kevin Herter throws it to De'Aaron Fox. Before De'Aaron Fox can get the ball, they foul Kevin Herter, so he doesn't go to the free throw line. The very last play of the game, Steph Curry dribbles the ball off his foot. De'Aaron Fox picks it up, races to the other end, and doesn't actually shoot a bucket. Finishes with 29. So I did win $200, but I missed a $2,000 payout by a whopping 0.5 of 1 point. Tough.
Better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
Yeah, it's a tough world. Tough world.
I
It's
know.
first world problems. So anyway,
There's
I'm
probably
having
a
a good
hotline
time.
you need to call. That's a bad
What's
beat.
that?
There's probably a hotline you need to call.
That was a bad beat right there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, I had called the wife up. I'm like, "Hey, I gotta show you this," and she's like, "Oh, no." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I knew, like, early on, I started checking them off, like, one by one, like, "Oh, Steph had 4 rebounds in the first quarter." Like, "Oh, yeah, I'm getting that one." And then Kevin Huerter hits 2 threes. I'm like, "Well, that one's easy." And then Keegan Murray got an early dunk. I'm like, "Well, I'm already there. I already got 3." Yeah, it was just systematically. And then the Harrison Barnes one, it just sat there. He had 3 rebounds forever. He needed 4, and it was the late rebound where where Kuminga, the ball slipped out of his hands, and it looked like it might be a block, like, right at the end of the game, and then Harrison, jumped up and grabbed the rebound. So I got to that one, and then I just couldn't get that last point. So, anyway, I'm
Moral of the
enjoying
story,
Prize Picks.
don't be like James.
Don't be like James. James is not good at Prize Picks,
Pick
but
better.
don't be like James. Okay, Sean. Yeah, final thoughts. What we're pretty much done, right?
We're done.
We're done.
We're
James's
done.
final thoughts. We'll be back soon. We'll have Brendan. He's not going anywhere. He just has a busy day. Tune in to Sean's content at Fox 40. Especially like Sean was all over the place at the NFC Championship game. You're not going. Are you going to the Super Bowl?
I we're gonna have coverage from the Super Bowl, but I don't know if I'm a part of it. I think I find out the next day or two. But even if I'm
Okay.
not, we're gonna have some good stuff. And just had I did just finally this morning. I was able to run it yesterday. Just because of all the Niners stuff, it kind of got pushed back a little bit, but finally released that Stanley Johnson interview. Curious as to what people might have thought of that. I really enjoyed the interview because he has such a refreshingly honest assessment of not only his outlook of where he is in his career as a guy who, 2015 he was the eighth pick, and now here he is toiling in the G League to try and find his kind of career again.
Mm-hmm.
But his optimism is just he has such a really feel good optimism around him. It was an interview that the way he participated in the interview differently than I thought. And full transparency, I do a lot of these interviews over the course of the past 2 decades where, Sacramento has a minor league baseball team. We have a Stockton G League is a minor league kind of organization, that is just in Stockton. You've got single A and double A sprinkled throughout the area. So you do these interviews a lot where, there's a guy who's kind of toiling in the whatever, and he's trying to, and some people can look at it as like well, here I am, I'm just trying to cling on to hope that I can make it back, or things didn't go quite my way, or there might be an injury here or an injury there. Or his is like unlike a lot of people that I've talked to. And
Hmm.
I think you'll pick up on that. The vibe is just a lot different. Like he feels blessed to be with the Stockton Kings. And the way he talks about it, I think is wholeheartedly honest and authentic to him. So appreciate him sharing the story, and be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I would like to hear what people might think, because that was just me coming away from that interview. I wish I had more time to talk to him.
Sweet. Yeah, and make sure you're following all that Sean does. Sean does a ton of good work, whether it's again football
Oh,
or it's local sports or it's high school. Like I don't know what you got coming up on high school, but
oh
like
boy, how
after
about
Super Bowl stuff.
Brandon? How about Brandon Gibson? If you haven't heard that name, Monterey Trail. He's a senior with Monterey Trail in Elk Grove, the Mustangs. He just dropped 51 points, I think, the other day. That
Oh.
was the most in a long time. Bill Cartwright has the most in the Sacramento area. Was like 66 back in the day with the Elk Grove Thundering Herd, which is my alma mater.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to school with him. I'm not that old, but
No.
he scored 66. I remember, here's a name like Darius and Demarcus Nelson back in the day,
Oh
dropped a
yeah.
50 piece, but he went to
He
Duke
went to
and he
Duke,
played at
right?
Sheldon. Yeah. He had a little run in the NBA, but yeah, this kid Brandon Gibson is nice, man. He's
Hmm.
fun to watch.
Okay. No, it's good to see. Outside of that, final thoughts for me. Tune into the insiders. Me and Kyle are having a great time. He's back. Lots of football coverage, lots of Kings coverage. And it's just another avenue for you to get more Kings information, especially as we load up and get ready for the NBA trade deadline next week. It's going to be a little wild. It's going to be a little wild, I think. So tune in, and it gives you a place where you can go and camp out. And as news breaks or as we break news, you should be able to have a pipeline to things there. And Sean and I will be back next week. We'll have Sean. We'll have Brendan. We might even do one this weekend, especially if something happens and something breaks. We'll jump on, especially with the NFL on hiatus for the weekend. So, thanks
I
for
need to
tuning
I need to
in
hear
to
from Brendan because he was at the NFC Championship. I want to know how that experience went for him.
Brendan Went.
Yes, yeah, Brendan
Oh, I
was
didn't know
there.
he went.
He was so looking forward to Journey, the halftime performance with Journey. It wasn't Steve Perry, but it was everybody else was there. They have a new lead singer, a Filipino guy, Arnel Pineda, I think his name is.
Yeah.
He's been there for several years, but yeah, Steve Perry no
Oh,
longer obviously part of the
it's been a lot longer than that though.
yeah.
Yeah, because it was Steve O'Gerry, and then it went to him. He's been there probably for like close
Was
to
his
10
real name
years.
Steve O'Gerry?
Yeah,
That
yeah, the
that's
other
incredible. I
guy.
didn't know that. That's funny.
And he had a great voice too, and he sounds a lot like Steve Perry. I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. Like Steve Perry just doesn't want to do it, and he doesn't want to be out in
Right.
public, and it's kind of sad. He just doesn't. He lost his love of being out in public and everything else. So,
He did come
um,
out with an album recently, though. I mean, it was like within the past 2 years, like a solo album.
yeah, I mean, just still incredible voice,
Right.
incredible voice. So,
Anyway,
yeah, I forgot about that he was going to
but
be. I mean, that Journey was going to be there. I have
Journey
seen
sa
Journey in concert.
Journey fixed the 49ers. They're down
Oh,
17 at half. They performed "Don't Stop Believing," and guess what? They're back
boom.
in the Super
Science.
Bowl.
That's
Yeah.
right. Amazing. Sweet. Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of the King's Beat podcast. Number one, jump on board with Prize Picks. There is a link in the description down below. Use the promo code King's Beat for your first. It matches up to a certain dollar amount for your first purchase. I'm having a good time. Sean's having a good time watching me have a bad time on certain nights, and like overall, I think it's just a good way to add to your viewing, as long as you're being responsible and not doing crazy things. So, again, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast for Fox 40. Sean Cunningham. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We'll see you soon.